Bahamas. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Muy buenos días. Bon dia. My name is Mercy Correa, ALTA's Head of Industry Relations, and I am honored to welcome you to the 20th edition of ALTA's AGN and Airlines Leaders Forum, recognized as the largest aviation leadership event in Latin America and the Caribbean. It has been a benchmark for the growth of the sector in the region. And that's why we're here today, to foster an open and constructive dialogue between executives from major airlines and government authorities. We would like to start with some important announcements. We have simultaneous translation available for English and Spanish. If needed, the devices are available at the entrance of the room. Contamos con servicio de traducción simultánea para inglés y español. En caso de necesitar, los auriculares se encuentran a la entrada del salón. In the unlikely event of an emergency situation, please remember that emergency exit doors are located at the back of the room. And we invite you to download the app of the conference, where you will find the updated agenda, floor plans, and all details of the event. We would also like to invite you to follow ALTA on its social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, and to use the hashtag ALTAForum on all your posts. On behalf of ALTA, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our host airline, Bahamas Air, our official host, Ministry of Tourism, Investment, and Aviation of the Bahamas, and thank you to all of our sponsors and exhibitors for your support. To start with the agenda, I would like to invite on stage the President of ALTA's Executive Committee and CEO of LATAM Airlines, Roberto Aldo.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for coming to this very important event. I'd like to welcome you and all the authorities present in this very important conference. I'd also like to thank Bahamas Air for hosting us in this event, and in particular to Tracy Cooper, the CEO, who's been relentlessly working to have the opportunity to have us all here in this very important moment. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the ALTA Leaders Forum, and I think it's a very important moment, a good moment to reflect upon what the industry has done over the last 20 years. Between 2004 and 2024, the number of passengers that have been carried in Latin America has grown by 3.6 times. This is an amazing achievement, and ALTA expects that this year 480 million passengers will fly within the region and to the region. In this period, aviation has increased its presence on the GDP by 53% and has directly and indirectly created hundreds of thousands of jobs, while at the same time has made air travel significantly more affordable. ALTA estimates that during these 20 years, airfares have fallen by 50%, as billions of dollars have been invested in fleet, operating improvements, and technology. And at the same time, this industry has become significantly more efficient in terms of emissions, reducing its emissions by 31% by our peak. I think these are amazing results, but despite these achievements, aviation is still underdeveloped in our region. In 2023, on average, only 0.65 passengers per inhabitant flew within Latin America. This is a third or a fifth of what we see in developed economies. In a region of long distances, often measured in thousands of kilometers, with poor road infrastructure, with immense geographical barriers such as mountains, deserts, jungles, and oceans, the necessity for air travel is clearly evident. However, despite these important achievements, the industry's profits are still meager. It's a mere, on average, $1.9 per passenger. This is equivalent to only 5% of the cost of jet fuel. Isn't it amazing how, in spite of all these efforts, still our profits are so meager? And as we face the next 20 years, I think it's an important moment to reflect on the challenges that we see that this period will bring. Long-term traffic projections for the industry, measured by Airbus and Boeing, estimate that this industry will grow by 5% per year over the next 25 years. This means that by 2050, this industry will be triple in the current size. However, given these important achievements, it still means that many of the people that fly within Latin America have never taken the flight. Approximately 80%, 4 or 5 people that live in this region have never taken the flight. Now, as we think about this growth, I think it's important to reflect on the challenges we have in the future. I'd like to mention 3. First, our region has always faced a chronic deficit on adequate infrastructure. Airport access, airport terminal, and air traffic control infrastructure has been lacking. Today, ALTA estimates that 54% of our flights to the region operate on congested or severely congested airports. Secondly, cost of taxation. IATA Fuel Price Monitor estimates that the region with the most expensive jet fuel in the world is Latin America. Brazil, for example, is only surpassed by India as the country with the most expensive jet fuel in the world. And on the other hand, Colombia, for example, has a level of taxation that implies that more than 60% of the cost of the fare goes in taxes. These are not well-designed public policies that have hampered the growth of our industry in a place where people need it the most because of the geographical challenges that we face. These are 2 well-known challenges. Now, I think we're facing a third that is important to mention. And this one is a new endeavor. It's called decarbonization. We're well aware that this industry is one of the most difficult industries to abate in terms of CO2 emissions. And Latin America is one of the richest regions in terms of biodiversity. 25% of the species in the world live in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 6 of the 10 largest, most biodiverse countries are also in our region. Latin America and the Caribbean are in a great position to becoming a producer of carbon services to allow for the help of decarbonization. It is well understood, as we've seen everywhere, that sustainable aviation fuel is becoming the best alternative, albeit not only the only pathway to achieve the commitment made by the Paris Agreement, which is also being supported by the industry. SAF, however, is expensive, currently costing more than twice what jet fuel costs. It's scarce, and its production at scale is still uncertain. Its adoption, therefore, is not only slow, but currently unaffordable in sizable quantities, even if they were available. And currently, Latin America and the Caribbean has no production of SAF. So in this context, where still 80% of the population, as I mentioned, has never flown, and despite the tremendous progress made of reducing our CO2 emissions by LPK by 30%, we face a difficult task, and we need to find the delicate balance between emission reductions with the necessity of development of air travel at affordable prices and the consequential impact, beneficial impact that has on the economy. In this context, LATAM Airlines, together with Airbus, funded an almost 2-year-long study which was conducted by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, with the aim of understanding the possibilities of producing SAF in the region and the impact that SAF consumption and carbon pricing will have on air travel and the economic development in general. The study that has been presented and will present in ALTA in this occasion will be made public as well. And I think that study brings a few important conclusions that are relevant to us going forward. First, that certain countries in Latin America and the Caribbean have unique and tremendous opportunities of producing large quantities of SAF in an efficient manner, while others not necessarily will face those conditions. Second, that even in the best case production cost scenario, consumption by SAF by 2050, consistent with European standards today, would imply a significant drag on the expected 5% growth in the region, with the consequences to connectivity and to the development of economies that we all understand. It is becoming obvious that that increased price will be transferred to ticket prices and would affect principally the people that can afford it the least. That would multiply the social and economic impact. And thirdly, the study reflects that a region-wide carbon market would decrease the impact of these measures, taking advantage of low-cost, large-scale productions in countries like Brazil and Colombia. That unification of the carbon market will allow us to continue the path of decarbonization together with offsets in a way that hampers traffic in a much less significant manner. And for this reason, ALTA is announcing today that it will fund a study to define a regional map for decarbonization, one that takes into consideration local conditions and possibilities for offsetting efficiency improvements on the operations, SAF production, with the aim of informing public policies that we expect will allow us to transition to a more efficient and cleaner industry. We're also very pleased that both CLAC and ALTA have announced their support for this initiative. As I stand here today and look forward to the next 20 years, I'm being very proud of the developments we have been able to achieve in the past 20. I cannot feel less than proud of all the work done by the leaders and the people that work in this industry. I'm also very pleased, and in particular ALTA has been taking the leadership in this endeavor. It's a testament to what this industry can do and the development we can bring to the economy. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and I expect and I hope that you have very fruitful next couple of days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Now please welcome Dr. Kenneth Romer, Director of Aviation and Deputy Director General of Tourism, Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
The Honorable Philip Edward Grave Davis, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Basil McIntosh, the Minister of State for Aviation, President Roberto Jose Otello, my very good friend, CEO of ALTA, Director General of Ministry of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Latia Duncan, our Board Chairman, ladies in their respective places, Tanya Pratt, Bahamas Air Paul Bevins, and also Chairman Role, Mr. Tracy Cooper, the Managing Director of Bahamas Air, colleague, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, and especially persons who have joined us now from across Latin America, the Caribbean, inclusive of the Bahamas, our virtual audience, and in one word, we call all of you family. Buenos días, mi familia. Bienvenido a las Bahamas. And like we said, so wanted always to this, I was now speaking English. Good morning, my family, and welcome to the islands of the Bahamas. I welcome you here today, not really as delegates or participants, but you really welcome you here today as family. Because that is who we are, really, in the aviation ecosystem. Our bonds transcend and defy geographical, socioeconomic, demographic, and even political divides. And we collectively continue to demonstrate to the world that we are indeed paving the runway for development, one that promotes an ecosystem that brings value to Latin America and the Caribbean, Bahamas inclusive. As we continue to explore key subjects around regional competitiveness, innovations, sustainability, connectivity, and strengthening our relationship within Latin America and the Caribbean, I, on behalf of all of our aviation ecosystem partners, your family, wish to pledge our full support. May your visit here be both productive and enjoyable. And yes, I will say after tomorrow's session, you can change from your coat suit into your swim trunks. We look certainly forward to your return with your families and your friends multiple times to the islands, with the plural, of the Bahamas. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a proud nation. But our greatest pride is not in the beauty of our diverse product, but really in the beauty of our people. Persons like our most distinguished Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Edward Brave Davis. Politically, he's the fifth serving Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and one who history would record as being among the most impactful leaders in our nation's 51 years of independence politically. Professionally, he's regarded as one of the most distinguished members of the legal fraternity. He serves as a member of His Majesty's King's Council. Professionally. Personally, our Prime Minister, to me, serves as a father figure. He serves as a formidable influence in my life, and I'm proud to not only refer to him as my Prime Minister, I'm proud to also refer to him as a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you would please stand and receive at this time with remarks the Honorable Philip Edward Ray Davis, Member of Parliament, King's Council, Prime Minister, Minister of Finance in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Prime Minister.
Morning, and please be seated. Thank you, Dr. Roman, for those kind introductory remarks. Thank you for establishing the protocol, which I now adopt. I was moved by the comments of the President at that time, CEO, in acknowledging the concerns that most vulnerable countries like ours in the Caribbean and in Latin America have with respect to the impact of carbon emissions and the role that the airline industry plays in that issue and the recognition of that, and recognizing the biodiversity that the region has. And if you add seagrass to that biodiversity, though we are not as responsible for most of the emissions. Our region carries the heaviest burden. And so I was pleased to see that acknowledgement. And I trust during the course of your deliberations, you will be discussing how assistance can be had from the industry in our move to decarbonization. And one way to do it is participating in the monetization of carbon credits, using as a base and as the asset our biodiversities. Colleagues, we live in a country here in the Bahamas where nearly 700 islands and keys are spread across vast stretches of ocean, and our ability to connect these islands relies on a robust aviation network. With 20 international airports, each serving as a critical gateway, the Bahamas depends on aviation not only to support tourism and trade, but also to provide essential links for our people to healthcare, education, and economic opportunities. This network is more than infrastructure. It is essential to our way of life. Yet, the challenges of maintaining this network are substantial, given our geographical makeup. Keeping each airport up to international standards requires extensive planning, investment, and commitment in the Bahamas. Every airport, whether it's a bustling international hub or a small family island terminal, must meet the highest standards of safety, efficiency, and environmental responsibility. It's a serious challenge, but one we are committed to meet, and over time, we have proven to be a model of resilience and success in this region. That's why it's an honor to welcome each of you here today for the Latin American and Caribbean Air Transport Association Forum. This forum provides an invaluable opportunity for us to share ideas, address our common challenges, and collaborate on ways to strengthen the aviation network across Latin America and the Caribbean. This gathering is especially meaningful as it aligns with our Bahamas Aviation Week, a time we use to recognize the progress and dedication that drive our aviation sector. Recently, our commitment was formalized in the launch of our National Aviation Strategic Plan, a clear framework designed to build a sustainable, efficient, and high-standard aviation sector that continues to meet the evolving needs of our people and our region. In a country like ours, infrastructure is not just a convenience, it's essential. Our 20 international airports serve as lifelines, providing critical connections across our islands and beyond. Every airport from Nassau's busy hub to smaller terminals on remote islands must meet international standards while catering to the needs of its community. Our National Aviation Strategic Plan reinforces our commitment to maintaining these standards, ensuring that Bahamian aviation serves as a trusted and effective gateway to our nation. Infrastructure alone is not enough. It takes strong partnerships to sustain and improve our aviation sector. Collaborating with airlines, airport operators, and international aviation bodies allow us to stay aligned with industry changes and create policies that support our goals. This forum reflects the importance of those partnerships, bringing together leaders towards a connected, resilient aviation network that serves us all. Connectivity is the backbone of our economy and essential to daily life in the Bahamas. Our airways don't only bring tourists to our shores, they ensure Bahamians can access healthcare, education, and opportunities. By enhancing connectivity within the Bahamas and increasing routes to international markets, particularly in Latin America, we strengthen our economy, support our communities, and open doors for new opportunities. Our aviation network relies on skilled professionals to keep it running smoothly, from air traffic controllers to ground crew. These individuals are essential to our success. The National Aviation Strategic Plan emphasizes workforce training and development ensuring that our aviation professionals are prepared to meet the industry's demand and drive our network forward. Safety and security are at the core of everything we do. Civil Aviation Authority of the Bahamas enforces rigorous safety standards, conducting regular audits and assessments to ensure a safe experience for every traveler. This commitment to safety strengthens the trust that visitors and residents alike place in the Bahamas aviation sector. In today's fast evolving aviation landscape, innovation is essential. We are integrating advanced technologies to enhance security, streamline operations, and improve the passenger experience. These innovations aren't simply about staying current, they are about positioning the Bahamas as a leader in regional aviation. As a nation heavily impacted by climate change, sustainability is more than a goal. It's a responsibility. Our airports are incorporating renewable energy sources, adopting sustainable practices, and aligning with international emissions targets. This commitment ensures that our aviation sector operates responsibly, preserving the Bahamas for future generations. Today, each of you bring invaluable knowledge and experience to help us build a stronger, more connected aviation network. Together, we have the opportunity to make a real difference in how our region meets the demands of a complex, interconnected world. I want to thank you to our Bahamian aviation community and to each ALTA delegate here today for your commitment. I hope this forum offers meaningful insights and inspires new partnerships for the future of aviation in Latin America and the Caribbean. To our friends and guests, I invite you to take in the spirit of the Bahamas, a place where the beauty of our islands is matched only by the warmth of our people. While you're here, discover for yourself why we work so hard to make this nation a model of resilience and connection. Enjoy our sun, our culture, and hospitality that makes the Bahamas truly unique. And when it's time to head home, I hope you leave not just with new insights and partnerships, but maybe with a little sand in your shoes and toes as a reminder that you'll always have friends waiting for you here in the Bahamas. And I trust that while you're here, you discover why it is said, it is better in the Bahamas. Thank you. Please enjoy everything that our islands have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister Philip Edward Davis. Please everyone stand up and we say farewell and thank you for joining us and for your welcoming words. Thank you, everyone. You may take your seats. And now to officially start the conference, it's my pleasure to introduce you to ALTA's Executive Director and CEO, José Ricardo Rivera.
leaders. Good morning, everyone. Especially Trace Cooper, where are you? And Dr. Homer. Just to say that after many years, we did it. We did it, and we are very proud to be here in this beautiful island. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Philip Edward Davis, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Commonwealth, and of the Bahamas, aviation leaders, distinguished authorities, colleagues, and friends, welcome. Today, under these vibrant skies of Bahamas, a place that evokes both the serenity of its waters and the promise of distant horizons, we gather to celebrate the 20th edition of this forum. Being here is an important milestone for the association, and I want to start expressing our deepest gratitude again to Mr. Trace Cooper, CEO of Bahamas Air, and the Vice President of ALTA Executive Committee for his steady support, warm welcome as hosts. Without your support and commitment to this conference, wouldn't have been possible being here. I would like to thank the Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation for its important contribution to the conference and support. Honorable Chester Cooper, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation of the Bahamas, Dr. Kenneth Homer. Thank you all very much. And also as well, I would like to thank the Executive Committee of ALTA that support us during this entire time to be here today. Thank you very much. More than 2 decades in which the ALTA ATN and Leaders Forum has served as the meeting point for aviation in Latin America and the Caribbean. This platform, where some of the most transformative changes in our industry have taken shape. This forum, now standing as one of the longest running in the region aviation history, has maintained its unwavering commitment even in times of uncertainty, like in the pandemic time, when the whole world stood still, but we pressed forward, knowing that aviation is the heartbeat that keeps our region alive. 20 years ago, 2004, aviation in Latin America and the Caribbean carried about 100 million passengers. Today, that number has grown to over 360 million passengers. A clear demonstration of our industry's impact on millions of lives, connecting families, creating jobs, and opening doors to the new economic opportunities. This growth isn't a coincidence. It's the fruit of a sustained and intensive collaboration where each of you here today, each leader today here, has played a vital role. Throughout these 2 decades, ALTA has been a powerful catalyst for aviation industry progress, fostering collaboration with governments, opening dialogues, breaking down barriers, and building bridges that enable a stronger and safe aviation sector. ALTA has highlighted the challenge of excessive litigation in the aviation sector, which often results in decisions that compromise its development and competitiveness. This organization has been active in challenging counterproductive regulations and has promoted efforts to establish a more suitable regulation framework that favors
sustainable growth of responsible aviation in the region. Through its initiative, ALTA seeks to foster an environment where this industry can thrive and better serve our country's development. Thanks to this effort, we have worked to educate stakeholders about conditions affecting operating costs, the impact of improving airport infrastructure, and how to advance in creating a more competitive environment for our industry. In fact, at this very forum, we are launching the competitiveness index as mentioned by our president Roberto Alvo, a tool that analyzes and compares the conditions impact the cost of flying in our region, allowing us to identify key areas for progress and improvement. And for that, I'd like to take the opportunity and thank the Minister Mateo that is here to use that in your country and you see the results. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, sir. Our region continues to face some of the highest operating costs worldwide, and the need to improve airport infrastructure remains urgent. Moreover, the growing demand to reduce carbon emissions calls us to act decisively, adopting clean technologies and advancing to use of sustainable aviation fuel, known as SAF. As our Executive Committee President just stated, our region needs its own roadmap, one that is aligned with our country's context and needs. Moving beyond these challenges, we are joining forces to promote the inclusion of more women and young people in technical and leadership roles in aviation. Initiatives like our Girl with Gold scholarship programs, which support women in developing careers in aircraft maintenance, clearly show that together we can build a more diverse and inclusive industry, not just talking, but walking the talk. Today, I'm proud to say that ALTA has grown like never before, with 177 members, from which 51 airlines responsible for close to 90% of regional passenger traffic. We continue to grow thanks to the commitment of airlines, manufacturers, suppliers, and many other key players. This growth not only reflects our impact in the region, but also the trust that you all place in our mission. And for that, thank you very much. Thank you. Here at this forum, we are joined by the industry's most prominent leaders, top executive leaders. Airline CEOs manage the most complex challenges. Government representatives who have shown unprecedented openness to driving our industry to growth. And visionaries who, with every decision, chart the future of air transportation in Latin America and the Caribbean. Finally, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all who have made this more than 4 decades of association and more than 2 decades of Leaders Forum possible. Thank you for your commitment, your vision, and your tireless work. Thank you for not giving up when the headwinds were strong, for believing in the power of collaboration, and for dreaming for a future where aviation continues to be a fundamental pillar of our economy and societies. The opportunities before us are immense. ALTA, as always, will be here as the space where the idea converge, where consensus is built, and where the future is forged. Because together, we take flight and we will keep soaring higher every day. Thank you and welcome to the 20th ALTA AGM and ALTA Leaders Program. Enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose Ricardo. We are now delighted to announce a special raffle that will take place during the event. By supporting the Girls with Goals scholarship program, you'll have the chance to win an incredible prize: 2 round-trip business class tickets with Turkish Airlines. How you participate? You need to make a minimum personal contribution of $200 to the Girls with Goals programs through the contribution platform available at the website or by scanning the QR code on the screens. Contributions must be made by today at 8:45 p.m. And stay tuned because the raffle will take place during the gala dinner tonight at 9 p.m. and we will be announcing the winner. So take this chance to support the future of women in aviation and who knows, maybe win a special trip with Turkish Airlines. So good luck to everyone. And just to inspire you a bit more, we present you the following video.
Hola, mi nombre es Pamela Bolaños, soy estudiante de Técnica en Mantenimiento de Aeronaves en el Instituto de Formación Aeronáutica. ¿Qué significa para mí la beca? La beca me va a ayudar mucho a poder reducir mis horas de trabajo para poder dedicarle mucho más tiempo al estudio. También me encantaría poder entrar a un curso de inglés, ya que es un idioma fundamental para la aviación y así me va a poder preparar mucho mejor.
Hola, mi nombre es Fede Lagüero y soy estudiante de técnico en mantenimiento de aeronaves en el Instituto de Formación Aeronáutica. Apliqué esta beca porque estaba buscando un apoyo económico para poder concentrar más mi tiempo y obtener mis resultados en la parte académica. Me siento súper orgullosa y entusiasmada de poder obtener esta gran oportunidad, porque así voy a poder mejorar el tiempo en la parte académica, los resultados y poder hacer mi práctica profesional.
Hola, mi nombre es Sofía Marín, pertenezco al programa de TNA de la Escuela de Pacífico, beneficiada de la beca de Girls with Goals de la empresa ALTA. Más una ayuda financiera, como una ayuda para que enriquecen mis conocimientos.
Mi nombre es Esther Pocasangre, soy estudiante de técnico de mantenimiento en el Instituto de Formación Aeronáutica. Yo apliqué a la beca debido a que me parece una gran oportunidad para poder continuar con mis estudios y además me pareció muy importante ser parte de la iniciativa de ALTA para poder seguir desarrollando tanto estudiantes como profesionales en la industria aeronáutica.
Now we are ready to begin with our academic agenda and the first panel of this morning presented by CFM. In a scenario of rapid global transformations, including challenges such as sustainability, technological innovation, and changing passenger demands, CEOs will discuss the strategies that are shaping the industry. The panel will offer an insider's view of the trends and will, as well as address the main challenges and opportunities that will affect the airline market in the coming years. Please welcome our moderator, Gabriela Frias, CNN anchor, Tracy Cooper, CEO of Bahamas Air, Pedro Helber, CEO of Copa Airlines, Roberto Alvo, CEO of LATAM Airlines, John Watterson, CEO of Azul, and Federico Pedrera, CEO of Avianca.
Good morning, it's ALTA. To see how things are going for you guys, and Tracy, it's good to have you in the panel, and it's great to be in the Bahamas. Yes, things are better in the Bahamas so far, so I'm delighted to be here. I'd love to expand more in the topic of sustainability, since the Bahamas is a good example of a place that can be affected by hurricanes. And coming from Mexico, we've had a dramatic hurricane effect in Acapulco, Mexico. So probably you can talk to us about how you build that resilience when you talk about being an example of resilience. But to begin with, let me connect you gentlemen, the video that we just watched. What's going on with female presence in the industry, in your companies, in your industry? What does it take to bring more along? And even when they probably, a woman CEO standing here amongst us, share with us their own experience. What does it take? Let me start with Pedro in the corner. Good morning. It's on.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, you just need to be louder like me, sorry.
I'm glad with all technology. ALTA has a program or an initiative called 25. So by 2025, in certain key positions like pilots, mechanics, etc., we should either have 25% women or grow by 25% from when the company started a few years ago. And we have our own program in Copa called ALTA, which promotes that goal. And I think we're very much on track. We're emphasizing in our recruitment women for our own mechanic academy. And also we are giving, I guess, more facilities for women to also enter our pilot academy. So in terms of pilots, we have one of the highest percent of women, which is above 10%. And we're making progress in mechanics, and we think we're going to reach those goals, those ALTA goals. But of course, there's a lot of work to do in general, because that's only like a first phase. I think there are many more opportunities in our industry. So anyway.
Congrats, yes, please.
No, this is a very dear subject to us as well. I think to the industry as a whole. In our case, I'm really proud to say that so last year we had the first class of female pilots in Colombia. So it was something that was really important for us, but also to tell young women, yes, you can. You know, if you want to be a pilot, just be a pilot. Along with that, we announced for the first time full scholarships for women in Colombia. So we have now 20 scholarships across the country in Colombia. And that's the first step. We want to take it to Central America, we want to take it to Ecuador. And just to finish, you know, for us it's not just because we have to meet a goal, but it's a real pain for the business. We need more pilots, we need more mechanics, you know, and we have the experience that women are exceptionally good at their job in Naviaca. So we want more, and that's really see it. We see it as a way of really addressing a problem we have, which is we need more qualified labor, and that's it.
And who knows, maybe they can help you to the cost, the enormous cost that we have, whether it's taxation, whether it's relations with the governments, with the airports. Who else would like to talk about that? Gender parity, women. If you had a college girl in front of you and she'd be asking you, what does it take? What would you say to me?
You know, what I would say is, first of all, it's just good business. You know, I think that most people making purchasing decisions in their home are women, right? So we're talking about travel, and if you don't have a woman at the table when you're making marketing decisions and making where you should fly, when you should fly, I think that's just bad business, right? And I think that as a rule today, 40% of our senior leaders in the company are women, and it's important. And I think one thing that I think we need to do better as an industry is have mentoring opportunities, show that I think the women that are in the leadership positions need to reach out as well and offer up their time to help bring up other women in the organization. But as Fred said, having scholarship opportunities, the ability for, them to open and have a much broader vision. I think it's interesting we're talking about mechanics, right? We're talking about pilots, mechanics, more technical engineering. Those are all things that I think as an industry we can be much better at. But at the end of the day, it's just good business to do that.
Tracy?
Well, I think we already started that whole process. Chairman, Mrs. Stanley Pratt is a female. Half of our board of directors are females. As just been said, also half of our management are females, and more than 50% of our company are females. Obviously, we'd like to see some more improvements in the technical aspects, but I can tell you that there are female pilots piloting command of our airplanes today in and around the Bahamas. So we're continuing to make the strides. Obviously, we're going to make the efforts for any females that want to further themselves within the aviation industry. So we do have programs in which we are trying to identify females that go into the maintenance side of things. That's been a bit more difficult than any other aspects, but definitely from the piloting and from the management and from the structure, we have been a step above everybody else in this country.
Absolutely. Such an important topic in the region as well. Let me turn to the most pressing challenges that you're facing ahead. Because next year, lower growth is expected, GDP, in a region that has lost a decade because of we're overdiagnosed, but we do little to become more efficient, more productive, and to just assure that, guarantee that growth is there, and that is improving lives for people, incomes for people. What has happened? I know a lot of people are traveling, a lot of people are sacrificing all their expenses to keep on traveling, we know that. When is that window of opportunity closing? And in the context that we're living, what is your strategy as airlines in terms of communicating to governments, hey, don't tax us the way you want to. Hey, it's very expensive. This mall for passengers is so expensive for us. Hey, we connect and we're part of the solution. We're not part of the problem. And this is a recurring issue. I've been having the opportunity and the pleasure to talking to your new CEOs. This is a recurring issue. So you have to keep, evangelizing, educating, whether it's, from the highest level to policymakers in Congress, etc. Who wants to start? What's your first concern, your biggest concern in the context that we're living going into 2025? How do you plan to solve it? Yes, Robert.
So, hello?
Yes,
Yeah?
you're on.
We always complain. We talk about taxes, I just mentioned it. We talk about congestion. I think that we have failed to do one thing right. We've done it a few times in the past, but we're not consistent. We're not showing in numbers, in figures, exactly what the impact is. One thing is just to say, the other thing is to demonstrate. This industry is amazing. The power it has, not only to connect, but also the expansive impact to the economy. And in some cases, the poorest people, the ones that need it the most, they have no alternative, particularly on faraway regions. And we talk about that conceptually. It's easy to say, but I think that we have not been good at showing numbers and explaining the impact so that public policies can be done with a technical basis. We do understand why some of these public policies happen, and sometimes it's for political, even populist reasons. And I don't think that we have been up to the task of putting in front of those conversations the technical arguments that allow that to be a little bit more balanced. Actually, what we want to do now with this regional law, in terms of the conversation, I like it very much because it's a way of putting real technical data with arguments in front of policymakers to make sure that we change some of the course of these decisions, which honestly hampers not only aviation, I think the economy in general, and I think that us as CEOs have pending topics on that.
Do you agree, gentlemen?
I fully agree. You know, I'll give you an example. In Colombia in particular, you know, data shows that airline tickets have dropped 9% year on year, right? But we continue to hear every single day from policymakers that our tickets are too expensive, right? And in general, in terms of the general opinion is that the tickets are expensive, but nobody talks about the fact that, you know, for a domestic ticket in Colombia, up to 28% of the final price are, you know, airport taxes and taxes as well, airport fees and taxes, 20%. For international tickets, it can go up to 60%. After COVID, airlines are doing an amazing job in the region, and I look at my colleagues, you know, we're all doing a great job in terms of being more efficient, so we can put more people flying in our planes at a more accessible fare. But nobody's talking about, you know, the prices of airport fees in the region, taxes. So I agree when Robert was saying we have to do a better job, because we're doing our part. But when you look at taxes and airport fees, you know, there's so much to do yet to have more people flying in a region, you know, where flying is so critical for access.
I was going to add just, it's the word of mouth as well. It's not only the policymaker, but it's also the passenger. And the passenger has the immediacy of social, you have Twitter, X, you know, Instagram. So probably communication, I'm assuming you're talking about those both channels of communication, right? Go ahead.
Yes, and just to finish, and at the same time, we continue to see, you know, crazy projects saying that we need to regulate airfares, that it's better to regulate airfares when everybody knows that the regulation has been essential to the industry in order to grow passengers.
No, I would just say aviation is a force of good in the world, and I think many times, you know, we're criticized because of the delayed flight. You know, safety is our number one thing. But I'll give you an example. In Brazil today, there's one of the top engineering schools in the world. That there's a student there that relies on aviation for his next job at Embraer or Boeing or anywhere else, right? And yet there's also somebody that sells cheese on the beach in the northeast of Brazil that also depends on aviation. It's the entire spectrum, right? And so I think, you know, one thing that we did at Azul, you know, we talk a lot about the judicial claims in Brazil, okay? In Sao Paulo, for example, 1 out of every 1,000 passengers sues the airline, right? Still very high, highest in the world, but there was a state in Brazil when 1 out of every 20 passengers was suing us. So what did we do? We stopped flying to this place, right? And then all of a sudden, it brought everybody to the table. Because the importance of connecting a city and the GDP growth in that city, and then the public opinion turned on the lawyers, right? The public opinion turned and said, wait a second, I don't have access to get to Sao Paulo anymore? And it's like, well, I'm not going to continue to operate when 1 out of every 22 people sues me, right, for a delayed flight for something that's outside of our control. And so I think we, as an industry, I think we need to be more vocal, and we need public opinion to be on our side, right? And so what happens is, oh, you delayed your flight, you should be sued. It's like, well, hold on a second. If that means there's less flights, if that means there's less access, if that means that there's less middle-class people that can travel, all of a sudden, public opinion starts to change. And that's what happened. That's what happened in this area, and they said, wait a second. It got to the governor, it got to the federal government, and said, wait a second, we can't lose air service in these places. Well, if you want air service and you want more people traveling, more people using Uber, more people going to hotels, then let's have an open conversation about some of the pains that this industry has. Because if we do that, we all grow together and we all can prosper together.
And the other thing, next year, governments will need you. Passengers will need you, forgive me for the yelling. Passengers will need you. So the challenge is just around the corner. Yes? So, Pedro?
Yeah. I can't talk enough.
They don't want you to talk today.
It's too cold in the Bahamas. I'm not freezing. So, this side of the convention center. But, well, I think Federico and then John said something that is important, and is that, you know, I mean, in a way, they refer to that. The cities or countries that have better costs, lower fees and taxes, are going to do relatively better than others. They're going to punch above their weight. They're going to have more traffic, more tourism, etc. So it's also their choice. We can adjust, we will adjust capacity to the reality of a market. It's easy for us to adjust capacity and shift those planes to other markets that are more in demand. So it should not only be us like fighting for something that we think makes sense, but it should make sense for those cities, those airports, to do it for themselves. And there are really good examples, like Cartagena some years ago is an amazing example. They have like the highest passenger fees, departure taxes or fees, whatever, in all of Latin America. They lowered it by more than half, and traffic just took off. I mean, went through the roof in only a few years. And that's, of course, a destination that had some business, but also had the potential to attract a lot more tourism. And it was realized after they made that change. So, and I think Ecuador has been doing it lately. So we will probably see good results in Ecuador in the future. So it should be in the benefit of the city and the airport. We should not be the only ones pushing for those efficiencies. And again, we can move our capacity to other airports, to other cities.
Just a compliment, because I mean, I think we all agree on challenges, but what I think the conversation needs, in my opinion, to change from tit for tat. Because that example is like, all right, if you impose it on me, then I'm not flying, and then I'll show you what's the effect. I don't think that's the best way of approaching the situation. We need to be proactive. How do we educate at the end of the day these people so that they don't come with these bad ideas at the end of the day? It's not good for us that we end up threatening in a way or showing the consequences afterwards.
But we've had, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've had in the past examples where you've shown with numbers. You've been there, you've present with numbers, and sometimes not even the numbers are enough to convince them for taking over the body.
No, that's clearly the challenge, and at the end of the day,
Yes.
you cannot convince me, you have to stop flying
Yes.
or doing something. But we live in this very special issue with flying is so important for so many, and for some of us, it's just a dream of doing it. And it's actually cheap. It's in many cases cheaper to take a 500-kilometer flight than to get to the airport for that same time. And I don't think that we have been there in the sense of showing that difference and how important it is. And it's a shame that we end up doing it by means of showing what happens when we don't.
Yeah, I just want to perhaps on the first side, just kind of explain some things more so than to defend. In the Caribbean, taxes on tickets, airfare, typically is around 36.5%. I'm not saying you guys, but just thought but in the Bahamas, for instance, it is expressed indicating that there were 18 international airports in one country. A country with only 400,000 persons. And so the economies of scale simply not there, which to sometimes garnish that from just the airfare alone. And this is a problem spread across the small island states within the Caribbean, where some of them are much lower than the 40,000 talking about the Bahamas. And so the governments, and where we don't have natural resources, etc., unfortunately have to rely on the taxation to keep the infrastructure improved. In other words, if some of them don't provide those taxes, you would not really be able to even fly in because the navigational and all of the other essentials for actually flying into those countries will not be there, or the funds will not be there to provide those means. So it's a bit of a situational difference that we're talking within the Caribbean. And you have so many of these small island states that unfortunately, when they all add together, they're depending on it, but when they all add together, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. But we're still looking at the Caribbean to see how we can address those things.
Thank you. And let me just bring that to the bed of Bahamas here. I mean, your destinations or the people who should fly are from the U.S. basically, mainly. But when you're trying to connect to the rest, you're talking about even Latin America, the Caribbean, you know, or even the Dominican Republic. How would you balance that situation with that goal?
I'll start off by saying that even under the existing, I used to not just the Bahamas, and I think others as well. In 2023, we had a tourism population of about, or coming in of about 7.2 million. 2022. 2023, that jumped all the way up to 9.6 million, which is pretty much an astronomical growth. And all of that still happened with the tax structure and everything else in play. But as far as connectivity in around the Caribbean, it's been a really buzzword almost every conference we go to. We're talking about it, and we're trying to figure out how we can come together and do this a little better. The issue is that we have more flights into the Caribbean than in and around the Caribbean. It's almost a 2-to-1 structure. You have about 1,100 flights a year coming into the Caribbean in 2023, whereas in and around Intra-Caribbean is only about 530. So that's a half. And even for seat availability, you had some 49,000 seats available coming into the Caribbean, whereas you only had about 11,000 intra-Caribbean. Now, to put it in perspective, you are talking about lesser population movement, right? Air population movement in the Caribbean versus that coming into the Caribbean. Because the tourism product, obviously we have to sustain it. But we're starting to see some growth into the Caribbean airline, for instance, out of Provo is doing a good job, and a few of the others. But it is still a bit of a challenge. How do we move around, given the economies of scale, the demand, and maybe not so much so quick.
Okay, let me move to infrastructure. But before I do, Pedro, it's interesting that COPA has also announced an alliance with the Agency to Promote Tourism in Panama, along with COPA. Is there enough infrastructure outside of the Sea of Panama to make it worth it for tourists in this important bet that the Panama government is doing alongside COPA Airlines, you think, in terms of infrastructure and places to go in Panama? Can you explain a little bit? Can you describe that bit?
Yeah, so what we announced recently with the Tourism Authority and food, it's like a revamp of a program that started some years ago, which is the free stopover, the Panama stopover, which has been done successfully in other countries, like Iceland, for example, and other countries. So it's been like rebooted and relaunched, and it takes advantages of the millions of passengers that transit through Panama every year, and it gives some of them the option to stay in Panama for up to 7 days without a penalty or an additional charge to their fare. So it makes a lot of sense for Panama. Panama actually has an improving tourism infrastructure. It's growing as a destination, and it can use a little bit more promotion, even though that's also on the right track. But again, this takes advantage of all the good things we have, combined with the passengers that are already transiting past Panama. So it's like a win-win. It makes a lot of sense, and it's working.
It's working. Yeah, you want to attract 300,000 tourism, right?
This year should be around 150,000 by the end of the year. people taking advantage of the stopover.
Okay, and asking if it also makes a lot of sense to you as CEO of COPA. By the way, the board of directors elected Pedro to succeed Mr. Stanley Mota, effective next July, right? July 2025.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so our chairman is kind of stepping down as chairman
Yes.
and remaining in the board.
Yes.
I will replace him as chairman, so be CEO and chairman, and I'll be executive chairman.
Yes.
That will be July 3rd, and it's kind of more of the same.
Congratulations, Bill.
Not a big
Yes,
change.
exactly. What I was going to ask if it makes sense to you is what President Mourinho he announced it and then he repeated that he'll give concession documents airport. Have you, as the airline, been consulted about it? What's your opinion about it? What do you think about it? Is it the right thing? Corruption practices have been decided by the president of Panama. What's the issue there?
This guy can answer questions.
He always does that.
So we are involved.
You know, right?
Yeah, we're very much involved, and it's a thought, it's an idea. It still has to materialize. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to find what works best for Panama. There are many examples of failed concessions throughout Latin America, so that's something Panama has to be very careful with. And Panama won't privatize the airport. That's like a bad word in Panama.
Yes.
So we are helping the government and the authorities look for a better formula if there is such a thing. So there's still some work to be done. The idea is for the airport to remain very competitive, but also at the same time build a better product for the millions of passengers that use it.
Anybody wants to talk about it? No? What should be the good model for a concession of Tocumen, for example, the Home Americas? Please.
I'm not going to talk about but, and when we talk about infrastructure, every time I say, my feeling is myself, is like we keep complaining. So I'll do it the other way around. Today I'm going to give you a couple of success stories that we had this year recently. And so overall, yes, our vision is for all Latin America, the number of passengers have outgrown the infrastructure. And that's a reality in most, every country in Latin America. But what we've seen is that if we work together, the airline, the authorities, and the concessionaire, we can actually arrive to some success stories. And in our case, last year we opened a new destination in domestic Colombia, Pintiales, that was hard work again between the three parts: the airline, the airport, and the authorities. We just announced last week 2 more destinations in Colombia that it wouldn't have been possible if, again, government, airline, and the airport work together. So we're starting flying to Quito and Arauca, and those are real problems. In Quito, we have an issue which is related to there's actually seaweed in the platform. So we have to find a way to solve it. We have issues with fire prevention. So my point is, I could stay 1 hour talking about all the infrastructure issues we have across our airports, or how we still have a bunch of big challenges in our main hub, Bogota, that, by the way, it was selected by UG as the most connected airport in the Americas and number 20 in the world, right? And we're very proud of it. So, a little bit. Thank you very much. Thank you. Number 20 in the world. There's Latin America. But the reality is, we have to find solutions, and those solutions we're going to find not alone, but working with governments, working with airports, to start flying to new destinations that otherwise would not be possible. So just today, I'm going to be a little bit more positive and focus on that part.
John Sassoon have an example like that in the case of Brazil. And by the way, let me ask you, a lot of people talk about the possibility, and this, about the Chapter 11, which is a route that you can take. Why not I mean, in the US it's a common thing, in Latin America we struggled during COVID, why not?
You know, I think Chapter 11 is typically when you have something broken in the core airline. I think we have a strong core airline. I think we got ourselves in trouble with COVID and then devaluation of the currency,
Yes.
and we've got great partners, right? So I think if any of them, there's a lot of people that have had experience with Chapter 11, but who ends up making money, just go to New York and go to a law firm, go see an advisor, and that's where all the money goes. It doesn't go to your partners, it doesn't go to your creditors, and so we felt like, hey, let's do something that's a little bit more creative and it's a better outcome for everybody, and that's kind of what we did. So I think, but it all starts with having a great airline, right, that people want to support, right? It's so, we didn't create COVID, we didn't create the devaluation of the currency, you know, those are things that kind of happen, and it's how you manage through that. And I think what happens, you know, at least in the case of Azul, we have absolutely, you know, fantastic partners. We got great people. I mean, I remember telling people that in the midst of COVID, when the U.S. carriers were getting bailed out by the government, right? You know, we had 11,716 people took an unpaid leave of absence to save the airline, right? And so when I sit down with GE or Embraer or AirCap and my partners and say, hey, look at what I've done. You know, 11,000 people took an unpaid leave of absence. I'm sure you guys can step up and help a little bit here, right? Because if we press that red button, you lose, these people lose, let's just work on a more creative solution. I think a sacrifice from everybody is much better than, at least in our case, obviously there's a lot of success stories, but Tammy had a lot of success in it, and Bianca, and so it just wasn't the path that we chose. And so we chose a different path and kind of a path where we work closer with our partners. But when you talk about Azul in Brazil, a little bit with what Fred is saying, there are roughly 100 cities in Brazil that only Azul serves, right? And so are there infrastructure challenges in Brazil? Absolutely. You know, there are, but there's opportunities in Latin America. There are tremendous opportunities in Latin America. And I think we can continue to look for opportunities. And, you know, Roberto and I were talking the other day, sometimes the best healthcare in these cities is an Azul flight, right? Because they don't have the infrastructure. And when you talk about sustainability and helping people and, you know, people leaving poverty, you know, everybody should have access to healthcare. But if you're in a city, in a remote city in the Amazon region, and you have a health scare, the best thing to do is get them out of that city and get them to, you know, São Paulo or someplace else. And so I think, you know, I just want to kind of reinforce aviation as a force of good, right? When the COVID-19 hit, the airlines quickly stepped up and transported for free vaccines all throughout Brazil, right? That wouldn't have happened, and thousands of people would have died had it not been for the airlines. And so the airlines were essentially stopped, but actually spent money to distribute vaccines, you know, around the world. So we need to be telling those success stories of aviation being a force for good.
And now, absolutely. And absolutely, we executives who are willing and, you know, all the ecosystem that made that possible, we need to see it so that we can also help tell those stories, because it's important for the region to show that with examples. You know, to just tell how important your companies are for the entire nation. We don't have any trains. You are part of the solution. We just need someone who can, you know, explain to us and to the viewer how that happened. But let me just stay a little bit with John. Maybe you want to talk about Chapter 11, maybe not, in case you want to compare your cases. But John, there's also that rumor about Wall and Azul merger. Is it a rumor only? Is it happening? When will it happen? And how about the Brazilian Authority? Do you think?
Nobody told you?
No, nobody told me. It's happening.
Maybe we'll talk after. No, I think you always have a responsibility to look at what opportunities exist in the market.
Yeah, that's a response that everybody would think you would give us, right?
But you know, I think obviously there's conversations that are happening and
conversations are happening.
Yeah, I think it's natural for people in this industry to talk, and I think that happens. And
is the conversation also including the possible view of concentration?
I mean, mean, I think, as I said, I think there's 100 cities in Brazil and only a little serves, right? I think our overlap with LATAM, our goal is pretty minimal, right? It's less than 20%. But again, I'm not here announcing anything. It just, we have a fiduciary responsibility to look at opportunities, and I think that everybody has that responsibility as leaders. It's going to happen. Who knows? A lot of things, are studied and never happen. A lot of things, happen. So we'll see. As of right now.
Setting the record straight, that's it. That's my job, to set the record straight.
The one thing I'll set the record straight, somebody said that we were interested in airlines to Argentina.
That's true.
We don't even fly to Argentina.
And that's a question for you, gentlemen.
That's what Barrett did. He's going.
Here, si Guyana, in Argentina, because it's coming back, and with the government of Milei, it's very more attractive. So people say, maybe what you will be buying is still very complex in terms of culture, operationally. When you look at the next frontier for your operations, where are you looking at?
This region is under-penetrated, first of all. Let's not forget there's huge amount of white space still in the industry for any of us. So I think that the first obvious thing is, if we grew this industry by 3.6 times in the last 20 years, why not again in the next 20 years? So we're not going to expand geographically South America or Latin America. It is the size it is. I think that there's still a lot of opportunity. And countries like Argentina are coming from policies that I think hurt the industry significantly in the past. Now they have an opportunity to probably get a tool with respect to what most of us are doing. But the obvious thing for me today is just to expand the forceful good, as John calls it, I like that term. Even though, John, I think that we are a better safety service or medical service than you, but we should do that. I think that's the most immediate. But there's places like the Bahamas, there's places in the Caribbean that are still very unconnected. Cities in Brazil, for sure. There's many cities in Peru, like Freddy said, that still don't have airports that are capable of landing, twin jets, and that are relatively big. So big white spaces for cities.
You've been very general. There's nothing in your agenda, in your desk that you're looking at.
If I come, I'll have to kill you.
I can tell you. Go ahead.
No.
I was just telling that, after Chapter 11 for us, we come up with a philosophy that was actually Mike Swiatek's idea of, we have to go put ourselves out there and try new things. So our vision is, in every 10 routes that we try, if there are several ways it works, we're happy. And we've been doing that, and we had a lot of good surprises. For this year, for instance, we're opening, just for the end of the year, we're going back to some destinations, we're opening others, we're going back to Chicago, we're starting Tulum for the first time, the new airport, going back to Havana. You talk about Guyana, we're trying our new flight to Georgetown for the first time. So our vision is, there's a lot of opportunities, as Roberto and as John was saying, so we have to try and we have to take risks. And we're willing to, we won't get 10 out of 10, but we'll get 7 or 8 out of 10, and we're fine with that.
Tracy, please.
Yes, for the Caribbean, we see a great potential, actually, from Latin America. Sometimes we think all of these guys have to fly over the Caribbean to go where they're going to go to. And somehow they've lost track of the fact that there's some beautiful islands sitting down there that they can stop into. I was talking to Pedro last night and tell him, well, you need to get some Spanish branding in the Bahamas. I'm not going to take it to North. But take the Bahamas, for instance. 80% of our tourism comes from North America. And only about 5 or 7% comes from Latin America. Even though Latin America is bigger in population than North America. So the whole thing with this, Bahamas is started the whole thing, how do we possibly, interact with a lot of Latin American carriers that are actually flying over us. And okay, you don't want to stop in the Bahamas, perhaps you could take some of your people because we have
mutual eating spots, you know, Miami and Orlando and the likes, and that we could then expand that a bit. Obviously, we gotta, you know the likes for Latin American tourists, but it is our challenge to see how we can get all of our good friends on the stage here to start stopping and carrying a bit more.
You're listening, right? Yes, of course. Pedro, in the corner. What would you say? How big can Copa get, by the way? I mean, how big can Copa get? And Argentina and Venezuela also. Let's talk about those markets as well. It's important for Venezuela. So does our Morocco, in the US, in Latin America. Where do you want to start?
Well, we're very predictable. We have a single hub, the hub of the Americas in Panama, and I won't get into a contest about which is the most connected hub. It's not important. It's not important.
You had to do it. You had to do it.
So we're very predictable. One single hub. We just try to do it better every year. Add destinations, add frequencies. We're not doing a lot of that right now because we're waiting for Boeing to deliver planes, and that's not happening right now. So when that starts again, then we'll continue strengthening our single hub of the Americas in Panama, and that will happen sometime, I hope. It should. So I'm optimistic, etc.
And Venezuela?
So anyway, Venezuela, I don't know, it's unpredictable. We were told like the 30th of July to stop flying the 1st of August.
Yes.
And then they did the same with Peru and the Dominican Republic. So Latam had to stop flying also. They haven't done it with Colombia, but they're still hoping for Colombia to recognize them. It hasn't happened yet, but I guess they're still hoping. They don't want to close all the doors. And they need to be connected. It really makes little sense to affect connectivity because it's affecting themselves. But, you know, if I knew how they think and how they make decisions, then, you know, I would tell you more. But we go with the flow.
Anyone else? Okay. It's important also to discuss the fact that 2024, half the world is voting elections. I don't want you to give me your political preference. That's not what I'm here for. I don't need to do that, and you should not expect that from me. But definitely, policy making, it can be consequential for that. So let's talk about how you've seen it affect or not, in terms of your expectations of what is needed in Latin America, but also, you all fly to the US. That's happening in a couple of days. As CEOs of companies that require that, relationship with the government and the policy making that is sensible and makes sense, and, it's logical. What would you say for the region and then about the US? Who wants to start? I know it's a touchy subject, and I know you're going to remain silent, and no one wants to get the microphone, please.
So, I think it's a shame that I think every country in Latin America is growing less than what it is. And I think that's unfortunately because of the uncertainty, the populism, the political situation that we face in most of the countries where we are. And remember that in the 90s in Chile, the discussion was about, we will grow 6 or 7%, and it was about 1 percentage point of interest rate to try to keep inflation between 3 and 4. I mean, look at that. And look at what's going on today. Chile, if lucky, is going to grow less than 2%, an economy that probably has the potential to grow 4 or 5. And I think it's frustrating, to be honest. And I'm sure that all of us as citizens and voters probably get a little bit turned off by this whole situation, and it's a shame. And I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest, with the direction that this has taken. And I think everybody kind of pays the price and suffers. With respect to the US, at least from our perspective, from my personal perspective, I don't think it affects the industry in a significant way. What will happen to the world in one case or another, I think it's a very interesting and open conversation. But But I think that we have the problems we have at home, where clearly this beautiful region that has so much growth potential, still underdeveloped, is growing far, far less than what it could.
Yeah, you know, I agree with Roberto. I don't think it's going to impact aviation that much. But what I will say is, you know, think of South Florida without Brazil or Colombia, or, I mean, so much of the economy is driven by people from South America going into South Florida and spending money. So I think any administration is going to want that. But I think the other thing that's happening is the conflicts that are happening worldwide right now are getting people to rethink a lot about nearshoring, which should be very good for Latin America. And that should be something that we're promoting. And, you know, look, you know, people have spent billions of dollars, you know, far away from the United States, and maybe that should be spent much closer, right? And so there's a lot of things that, you know, can benefit Latin America, and from a trade perspective, and kind of bringing jobs, you know, kind of to this side of the world, and I think that can be very beneficial. So I think that's something that, you know, with everything that's happened in Russia and everything that's happening in the Middle East, I think people are scared. And I think, you know, Latin America should use this as an opportunity, you know, to kind of shine, you know, over the coming years.
Yes. Very good. Yes. And coming from the perspective of the World Bank just issued the latest forecast for this year. And what we're talking is, we already know we have another lost decade in terms of growth. I mean, we need to realize that. And in the next few years, we've heard a lot of redistribution policies, but not a lot about, you know, revamping economic growth. So that's where my question is coming from. Pedro.
So the economy, well, I mean, aviation has grown quite a bit in Latin America since the pandemic. I think that's been like a positive surprise. If it slows down, it would be expected. And it's kind of up to us to manage capacity accordingly, so we can adjust to that. But so far it's still growing. Maybe not as fast as 2 years ago or 1 year ago, but the markets are still growing, and that's a positive. And we just need to, I mean, at least the way we manage things at Copa, we're always very conscious of the downside of when things slow down, and eventually they do. And we manage our aircraft orders and our growth plans according to that. We try to never bet the house. And that's why we're probably the only, like, let's call it legacy airline or something in Latin America that survived the pandemic without help from anyone. No Chapter 11, no one got upside help. No restructuring, no nothing. We came out of it stronger than before. And that's our philosophy, that's our business philosophy. And we'll be ready for the next downturn, because that's how we manage things, how we think. We know that there will be a downturn, there will be a slowdown, and one needs to be prepared for that. That's just the way we do things. Everyone does things a different way. In terms of U.S. politics, I agree with Roberto and John, and I don't think it will make a big difference in Latin America. And it's been a while since the U.S. paid attention to Latin America. It hasn't happened in many governments. There's a few initiatives right now that they focus on friendshoring, and there's a microchip initiative where a few countries have been picked to receive some sort of support from the U.S. to produce microchips here, close to the U.S. So those are, I think, interesting developments. But I don't know, in a bigger way, there hasn't been a lot of focus on Latin America, and I think it would be smart to change that.
That will benefit you guys. That will benefit your companies, definitely. Go ahead.
Definitely.
No, I was just going to add something about the US, which is, you know, throughout all the year we've seen a strong demand of traffic to the US. And you know, one of the hot topics of US right now in the campaign has been illegal migration. And we don't talk enough about it, but you know, throughout this year, the airlines, along with ALTA and ALTA, have done an amazing job working together with US authorities, with CDP, to effectively, reduce drastically the issue of illegal immigration. If you look 1 year ago, you would see these huge flows of passengers all across the world that were flowing through our networks in the United States. But that was another positive story. We're working together. We were able to address an issue where right now, I would say in our case, it's a tenth of the problem that it was. So I'm also positive that, even for one of the hottest topics of the election, which is immigration, we were able to address it working with the U.S., working with the airlines, IATA, and I continue to be optimistic about traffic to the U.S. looking forward.
Thank you, and thank you for your willingness to talk about this, because I know that it's such a subject. You're like, oh my God, where is she asking? Last but not least, I have to go back to Roberto, but I want the opinion of you all gentlemen. Decarbonization, the SAF, all that conversation, the MIT study, now the research that is going to be carried out by ALTA. Roberto, you've talked about this for over a year. What has happened in the last year in the region in regards to that? And also, are all of the airline CEOs in agreement of what the strategy should do? Of course, the region has different countries, different needs, but the most viable strategy according to your own operations, have you sat down and talked to you all and make consensus about one strategy, 2, 3 strategies, the best ones for the region or not?
So first, I think this is a conversation that is happening and will happen. So I don't think that there's a point today in thinking that we're not going to have to face it. It will come. The question is, how do we do it? How do we do it? And many people can say, listen, it was the developed countries that put 90% of the CO2 in the atmosphere, and here we are in Latin America, which is much less developed, suffering for it. And I think it's true. And I think that has to be part of the conversation. But I think that the only way we're going to be able not to be averaged down by policies that are made in the developed countries that try to equate us to what they do, is by doing what we're trying to do here, which is take a look exactly at what happens in our industry, what are the impacts in our part of the world, and how do we develop our own path that takes into consideration the particularities of Latin America. We are poor economies, so many places disconnected. 80% of the people in this industry have never taken a plane. And imagine the social benefit and the impact of that. So we have a very delicate balancing act between moving towards urbanization, but not make it in a way unaffordable, particularly for the people that need it the most. And we talk about SAF. I think everybody understands that SAF is important, but this is a region that has the ability to produce carbon services or environmental services. One of the most vital, actually the only CORSIA project today that has been approved by ICAO is today in this part of the world. So I think we have the opportunity to make out of this something that is good for the region, good for the world. But if we just hide our heads below the earth, it's going to come upon us in a way that is not going to be good for any of us. So I'd rather take it face on, but also take advantage of, wonderful group of people that we have here that know a lot and that can make this impact to be more balanced vis-a-vis what is important for the society.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Roberto said. I also think we need to play offense and not play defense. All right. One of the ways of playing offense is we can put SAF in the aircraft tomorrow at 1% in Brazil, great. But we also have the youngest fleet in the world, right? And so we're already, in our carbon footprint, Roberto shared this yesterday at our ALTA executive meeting, is down 30% over the last 10, 15 years, something like that, right? And so, that's what's happening. And today, in Latin America, jet bridges still don't have power and air conditioning, right? So let's focus on what we can do today, as opposed to focusing on what can be done in 2050, right? I think there's so many improvements that we can do today. And we've invested collectively billions and billions of dollars in next generation aircraft. because fuel already in Latin America is the highest in the world. It's already the highest in the world. So when you think of SAF being 3-4 times more expensive, you need to have an industry that can decarbonize. And I'm afraid that if you go down this route too fast, you're not going to have an industry. You're not going to have people that can travel, right? Because it becomes prohibitively expensive. And so I think we need to focus on what can we do in the short term, and that's, flying next-gen aircraft in the region, that's, fixing air traffic control, that's having more power at jet bridges. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do very, very short term. That's also good business, but, I agree 100% with Roberto. It needs to be different in Latin America, and I think we're very aligned on that. And so we're not ignoring it, but I think there's a lot of other things that we can do in the short term that will benefit the environment.
Well, for the Caribbean, really, you go and you talk to the fuel providers and you say, hey, what about SAF? And some of them ask you what that is, they're not even following closely. And they know about it, but they're saying that it's really unobtainable, that they really can't get their hands on. And so, when you see that major countries and authorities making decisions that are based on what they can do, and then leaving out all of the others where we can't, it becomes a problem. Obviously, we can go to beyond the airplanes, and in the Caribbean, we've done that as well. Caribbean Airlines and Cayman and all the rest of those flying the latest and greatest, the best carbon controlling engines. But the reality is that it is not something that is straight across the board. This is definitely weighted by those that have the say and probably even have the ability. And they're not looking generously on us that are kind of suffering in the meantime, simply because we don't have to do things. Our Prime Minister spoke this morning about the fact that we're countries, and Bahamas, a country that does not even contribute that greatly to the colonization that we see, but yet we're so adversely affected. So we want to see the reduction of this, because the hurricanes and everything else that we see, that hurricanes now used to take a week to establish themselves, going from being a tropical storm to a category 4 and 5 overnight. So these are the phenomena that we have to see a reversal on somehow that are being affected by climate change. But it has to be done in a way where it doesn't bury the localized diagnostics.
Thank you. Before we go over.
Yeah, I was just going to say something. I'm being very short, and we're very passionate about it. But when we discuss the subject, our view is that we have to be fair and realistic. Fair, Roberto and John said that, today, the United States and in Europe, they fly 4 to 6 times more than Latin America if you look at penetration. Not only that, but when they travel, they can choose between a plane, between trains, between amazing road infrastructures that we don't have in Latin America. Most of the times, we have a plane, a boat, and that's it. So number one is it has to be fair. Moreover, most of the planes in Europe, Latin America, they're older than our planes in Latin America. So they're much less efficient than others. So the first one has to be fair. And 2, realistic. And realistic is at what cost are we willing to make that transition? When we know that it will directly impact the access of people in the region and the development of the economy in the region. So fair and realistic.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go over time then. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm hoping that the next time we meet, you figured out that better communication, as you acknowledged, that needs to improve so you can be more successful than what you are already. So thank you for your time. Thank you.